Chapter 17, Working as a Team. As the hands of the village clock wound through the early hours of the night, many minds worked overtime at the Baxters' farm. Everyone was on edge. When would Dewey come? All they could think about was the escape. They prayed there was still time. Dewey, don't come yet. Figgy's hole is almost done. As Figgy chipped and gnawed away at the ground, laboriously enlarged her escape hatch. As now thought of it, the other animals chipped and chiseled away at the plan. Nanny thought about whose doors should be opened first. Was there a perfect order that might buy them the needed moments? Pole thought about the wagon Dewey had used to move his equipment. If they made it until tomorrow, he swallowed hard thinking about this. Could the horse use the wagon to transform the other animals to the new farm? It wouldn't make all the difference if they didn't have to walk, but could ride. After all, even as Pole was one to encourage the plan, he knew the journey would be easiest for him, and this made him feel guilty. 8 miles was a great distance for the others, but it was not far for the big horses, and even the weight of a full wagon was negotiable. But how would they get harnessed? Could they get the animals up into the wagon? And would there be a passable route through the woods across the highway to wherever this other barn was situated? He nudged Tug. "Help me puzzle something out," he said quietly. Mrs. Brown waited fearfully for the squeak of the barn doors. At this point, the sound of Dewey opening the doors could very well be the death knell. But wait, she thought, realizing with a start that this could be a major hitch in the animal's plan. The creak of the doors was so grating and simply so loud that even at the house Dewey would likely hear it when they tried to escape. Was that why he never oiled them? Was this Dewey's improvised alarm system? What if they oiled the door hinges? Could they? Mrs. Brown rummaged over this as she slowly chewed her cud. Tick and Fluff continued to receive the small piles of dirt Figgy poked under the pen walls as they kicked at the piles and raked hay over the top. Fluff thought about having wings. I could really be something with wings, she thought. Only Burdock crept away towards the front of the barn. He needed time to think. He had spent a lot more time with the barn animals than the owl had, but she was still willing to take a huge risk for them. She had traveled all the way back here, and even, it seemed, had put her life on the line to help the rest of the barn animals escape. Burdock had agreed with Nanny, had said Noctua was courageous, and here he had been thinking about slipping away alone, finding a nice warm place for himself and not looking back. What exactly did that make Burdock? Selfish? Would leaving have made him a deserter? Or, alternately, had he just been level-headed, prudent, smart, even? The cat had never been one for moral quarantories, and he was caught up in a quarantory of such mammoth proposition that he felt lost. Nothing here was straightforward. Naturally, saving yourself seemed right. Obviously, abandoning your companions seemed wrong. But what if saving yourself meant abandoning them? Burdock's head felt heavy, and he suddenly felt weary than he ever remembered being. I really don't know anything, he thought, laying his chin down on the dusty floor and closing his eye. But he didn't fall asleep. He found himself listening for the creak of the front door and Dewey's footsteps. A short time later, Burdock got up and padded soundlessly down the aisle. He scaled a post fronting Figgy's pen and looked out into the near dark barn. Of course, no one was asleep. Animals were pacing in circles and pawing at the ground. Eyes roved into the darkness and ears swiveled to catch any warning sounds. Burdock saw that Nanny had her nose up to Figgy's pen and was whispering gentle encouragements. "That a girl, Figgy. You are good and strong. You are almost there, Figgy Pudding." Figgy was working like a machine. Her hind end was in the air, but her front half disappeared into the hole. She was twisted, too, as if she was trying to claw at the edges of the tunnel. And then she emerged, scooping out the dirt. Burdock saw just how badly her snout was scratched and bruised and how cracked her hoofs had become. Still, Figgy kept on digging ceaselessly. It was then that a new feeling seeped into the gray cat. She felt an unexpected admiration for the barn mates, all of them. The feeling stung. While he had only begrudgingly what had been asked of him, everyone else was contributing full at best as they were able to. Tick and Fluff were moving and hiding the dirt. The horse and Mrs. Brown were helping to strategize. Nanny was pulling everything and everyone together, and Figgy, well, her contribution was painfully obvious. All in this together they worked as a team, mobilizing their escape. And it was not even a sure thing. Far from it. It was the part that hit Burdock the hardest. If Dewey showed up now, and he very well could, it was all over. All their work would have been for nothing. How could Burdock have considered walking away from that? He remembered what Pole had said a few days ago in the pasture. You just want to believe your friends are on your side. Burdock knew he didn't have it in him to be courageous like Noctula or instrumental like Nanny, and clearly he wasn't dedicated as Figgy, but he could at least be trustworthy. That was worth something. Burdock jumped down from the post and padded silently out of the barn. He would start by scouting out what Dewey was up to.